Everyone, welcome back to another chapter of Asian Horror Diaries. Tonight, we're traveling to Japan, specifically Tokyo's sprawling metro system, where one of the most terrifying urban legends continues to haunt late-night commuters. It's called Teke Teke, and if you've ever heard that scraping sound on an empty platform at midnight, you might already know what I'm talking about. I'm going to share 3 real accounts that were sent to me, and after each one, we'll dive deeper into why this entity exists and what it wants. Trust me, you'll want to stay until the end, because the cultural context behind this ghost, it changes everything. Let me take you back to March of 2019. A university student, let's call her Yuki, was finishing her shift at a convenience store in Shibuya. It was a Thursday night, just past 1 a.m., and the streets were still buzzing with the last waves of salarymen stumbling out of izakayas and young couples heading home. Yuki had done this commute 100 times before. Shibuya Station to Nakano, 23 minutes. Barely enough time to scroll through her phone before her stop. Night, she missed her usual train. Some delay on the Yamanote line. No big deal. She'd just catch the 147. The platform was emptier now. Just her, an older man in a wrinkled suit nodding off on a bench, and a couple of high schoolers whispering near the vending machines. The fluorescent lights flickered once. Twice. Yuki looked up. The tunnel ahead was black and silent. That's when she heard it. A sound, faint at first, like something being dragged across concrete. Teke, teke, teke. Rhythmic, slow, coming from the tunnel. She glanced at the others. No one reacted. The old man was still asleep. The high schoolers were giggling at something on a phone. But Yuki felt her stomach tighten. She took a step back from the yellow safety line. Teke, teke. Not the rumble of an incoming train. Something else. Something wrong. She could feel the air change. Colder now, heavier, like the tunnel was exhaling something old and rotten. And then she saw it. At first, just a shadow, low to the ground, moving fast. Too fast. Then the shape became clearer. A figure, crawling. No, dragging itself along the tracks. A woman. Long black hair hanging in clumps over her face. But no legs, just a torso, arms clawing forward, fingernails scraping the metal rails. Teke, 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 teke. Yuki's breath caught. She wanted to scream, but her throat closed. The thing on the tracks turned its head, slowly, toward her. Yuki ran. She didn't wait for the train. She didn't look back. She bolted up the stairs, through the turnstiles, out onto the street, her heart hammering so hard she thought she'd collapse. She didn't stop running until she reached a 24-hour family restaurant blocks away, where she sat shaking in a booth under the bright white lights, too terrified to go back outside. She took that train again. Not at night. Not alone. Miss Continue, let me tell you about Teke Teke. This isn't just some random ghost story teenagers made up. The legend dates back decades, rooted in a specific kind of tragedy that, unfortunately, still happens in Japan. The story goes that a young woman, usually a schoolgirl or a young office worker, falls or is pushed onto the train tracks. In some versions, she's bullied. In others, it's suicide. But the result is always the same. She's cut in half by an oncoming train. Wildfire's her death is violent, sudden, and incomplete. According to the folklore, her spirit doesn't pass on. Instead, she becomes Teke Teke, a vengeful ghost that roams train stations, tunnels, and platforms, searching for victims. The name comes from the sound she makes as she drags her upper body across the ground, using her hands or elbows. Teke, 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 teke. And here's the horrifying part. If she catches you, She'll use a scythe, a saw, or even her bare hands to cut you in half, so you can suffer the same fate she did. Some versions say if you see her, you have only seconds to run. Others claim that once she's locked eyes with you, you're already marked. You have 3 days, maybe less. And no matter where you go, your apartment, your workplace, even a crowded street, she'll find you. It's a ghost born of trauma, rage, and the unfinished business of a violent death. And in a country where train suicides are tragically common, where the pressure on young people is immense, where shame and silence often follow tragedy, Teke Teke feels less like a myth and more like a warning. But let's get back to Yuki. After that night, she thought maybe she'd imagined it. Stress, exhaustion, the flickering lights playing tricks. She tried to rationalize it. She told herself it was just a homeless person, or maybe some drunk passed out on the tracks. But deep down, she knew what she'd seen, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something had looked back at her. For 3 days, she barely slept. She stayed at her boyfriend's apartment, refused to go out after dark, kept all the lights on. Her friends thought she was overreacting. Her mother told her to pray at the local shrine. But Yuki felt it, this creeping certainty that she wasn't safe. On the 3rd night, she woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of scraping. Not outside, not down the hall. Teke, teke, teke. She didn't scream. She didn't move. She just lay there, frozen, staring at the ceiling, listening to that sound grow louder, closer, until she felt the mattress shift beneath her. And then, from the edge of the bed, she saw it. A pale hand, nails black and broken, reaching up toward her face. Yuki bolted. She ran out of the apartment, barefoot, into the street, screaming for help. A taxi driver saw her and stopped. She begged him to take her anywhere, just far away. He did. He drove her to a temple on the outskirts of the city, where a priest performed a purification ritual at dawn. But she did tell me one thing. When she looked back at the apartment building that morning, from the cab, she swears she saw a figure in the window of her 4th floor room. Negligence dragging itself across the glass. Yuki never went back to that apartment. She moved to Osaka, changed her phone number, and avoided trains entirely for over a year. Some say she was cursed and got lucky. Others say Teke Teke only takes those who are truly alone, physically or emotionally, and that Yuki's desperate flight to the temple saved her. But there's one detail she never told anyone until years later. The night she saw Teke Teke on the tracks, she'd been thinking about stepping onto them herself. Just for a moment. Just to make it stop. The pressure, the exhaustion, the weight of everything. Maybe Teke Teke didn't come to kill her. Maybe she came to remind her what that choice really looked like. Now, could this all be explained rationally? Of course. Sleep deprivation, trauma, urban stress. Tokyo is one of the most overwhelming cities on Earth. Flickering lights, strange sounds and empty stations, even hallucinations brought on by exhaustion. It's possible. But Yuki wasn't the only one who saw her that week. 2 other passengers reported similar sightings on different lines. And the old man on the bench? He was found dead 3 days later. Heart attack, they said. But his eyes were still open, frozen in terror, staring at the tracks. But Yuki's story isn't the only encounter with Teke Teke that's been documented. Just 6 months later, in a completely different part of Japan, another incident occurred. this time in a place where no one expected her to appear. Welcome back. If you made it through Yuki's story, thank you for staying. Now, I want to take you to Kyoto, a city known for temples, cherry blossoms, and ancient traditions. But even in a place so deeply spiritual, there are corners where something darker lingers. This next account comes from a foreign exchange student, and what makes it so chilling is that he had no idea what Teke Teke was. He'd never heard the legend. He didn't even believe in ghosts. Until one rainy night in October changed everything. Let's dive in, and remember, by the end of this, you'll understand why Teke Teke doesn't just haunt train stations anymore. Springfield. Call him Daniel. He was 22, Canadian, studying Japanese literature at Kyoto University. Quiet guy. Loved walking at night, especially in the rain. He said it helped him think. And Kyoto at night, especially the older neighborhoods, felt like stepping into another century. Narrow streets, wooden houses, stone lanterns glowing softly in the dark. Peaceful. Safe. Or so he thought. While it was a Friday in late October, around 11 p.m., Daniel was walking back to his dorm from a study session at a friend's apartment near Kawaramachi. The rain had started, light at first, then steady. He cut through a residential area to avoid the main roads, and that's when he came across the pedestrian overpass. Old concrete bridges that cross over train tracks. Nothing fancy, just a narrow walkway with rusty railings and a faded yellow safety sign. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a sickly pale glow. Daniel had crossed it a dozen times before. No big deal. Something felt off. The air was too still. The rain seemed muted, like it was falling through cotton. And the usual sounds, distant traffic, cicadas, the hum of the city, were gone. Just silence. And his footsteps. And the buzzing of that light. Halfway across the bridge, he heard it. Teke Teke. He stopped, listened. It was coming from behind him, a scraping sound, rhythmic, getting closer. He turned. He saw in silver streaks under the light, but the sound didn't stop. Teke 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 Teke. Faster now, closer. Daniel's pulse quickened. He started walking again, quicker this time. The sound followed. He glanced over his shoulder, still nothing. But now he could feel it. A presence, cold, angry, right behind him. He started running. Teke 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 Teke. It matched his pace. No, faster. He could hear it now, not just scraping, but breathing. Wet, ragged, desperate. He reached the end of the overpass and nearly fell down the stairs. He didn't look back. He just ran, through the empty streets, heart pounding, lungs burning, until he reached a convenience store and stumbled inside. A middle-aged ghost. "Are you okay?" she asked in Japanese. Daniel couldn't answer. He just stood there, drenched and shaking. She poured him a cup of hot tea and made him sit down. After a few minutes, he managed to explain what happened, the overpass, the sound, the feeling of being chased. The clerk's face went pale. "You saw Teke Teke," she said quietly. "What?" She told him the story. The girl cut in half, the vengeful spirit, the scraping sound. Daniel listened, still trembling, and realized with cold, creeping horror that he'd never heard of this before. He hadn't imagined it. He hadn't made it up. He'd experienced something real. "You need to go to a shrine," the clerk said. "Tonight. Right now. Don't go home." Daniels did. He walked, practically ran to the nearest shrine, a small Inari shrine tucked between two buildings. He prayed. He bought an omamori, protective charm. He didn't sleep that night. He stayed in the shrine grounds until dawn, too afraid to leave. Now here's the thing about Teke Teke that a lot of people don't realize. She's not just limited to train platforms anymore. Over the years, sightings have spread. Pedestrian overpasses, underpasses, parking garages, anywhere that crosses above or below train tracks. Some believe her spirit is drawn to these liminal spaces, places where the boundary between life and death feels thin. Others say she's hunting, expanding her territory, looking for more victims. And the scariest part? She's fast, much faster than a human. In some accounts, she can move at inhuman speeds, her arms propelling her forward like something out of a nightmare. If you see her, you have seconds, maybe less, to get away. Daniel spent the rest of the semester on edge. He avoided that overpass entirely. He didn't walk alone at night. He kept the omamori on him at all times. His friends thought he was paranoid, but he couldn't shake the memory of that sound, that feeling, the cold certainty that something had been right behind him. 2 weeks before he was supposed to fly back to Canada, he got a message from the clerk at the convenience store. She'd heard from a neighbor that a body had been found near the overpass, a young man, early 20s. He'd been hit by a train. But here's the strange part. He was found on top of the overpass, not on the tracks below. No one could explain how he'd ended up there. Daniel left Japan the next day. Daniel never went back to Kyoto. He finished his degree remotely and avoided anything related to Japan for years. But he still has the omamori. He keeps it in his wallet, even now. He told me he doesn't know if it saved him or if he just got lucky. But he does know one thing. When he turned around on that overpass and saw nothing, he wasn't alone. Something was there, and whatever it was, it wanted him to know it. Could it have been paranoia? Absolutely. A foreign student, alone in a dark, unfamiliar place, letting his imagination run wild. The scraping could have been construction, a stray animal, even the rain. But the body found on the overpass? The clerk's reaction? The fact that Daniel had never heard of Teke Teke before that night? It's harder to explain away. Daniel escaped, but not everyone is so fortunate. Our final story takes us to Osaka, where a night security guard learned the hard way that some places are never truly empty. The underground parking garage. Final story in our Teke Teke series. By now, you know what she is, what she does, and where she appears. But this last account is different. It's not about running. It's not about escaping. It's about what happens when you can't. This comes from a security guard who worked the night shift at an underground parking garage beneath a shopping mall in Osaka. He sent me this account 3 years ago, and honestly, I almost didn't include it. It's that disturbing. But you've made it this far, so let's finish what we started. Stay with me. Call him Takeshi. He was in his mid-40s, former construction worker, divorced, living alone. The security job was easy, just him, a small office with a bank of monitors, and 6 floors of underground parking. Quiet, boring, which was exactly what he wanted. He'd sit there from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., watching the grainy black and white feeds, occasionally doing a patrol with his flashlight. Most nights, nothing happened. But in November of 2021, things started to change. It began with the cameras, specifically the one on sublevel 5. It would glitch, just for a second, showing static, then flicker back. Takeshi didn't think much of it at first. Old equipment, cheap wiring. But it kept happening. Always sublevel 5. Always between 2 and 3 a.m. He saw something, a figure, on the monitor, moving across the screen, low to the ground. At first, he thought it was a dog, maybe a stray that had wandered in. But when he rewound the footage, he saw it clearly. A person, crawling. No, dragging. Upper body only, long hair, moving fast. Takeshi's blood went cold. He grabbed his flashlight and radio and headed down. The elevator ride felt longer than usual. The air grew colder the deeper he went. Sub-level 5 was the oldest section, dimly lit, full of support pillars and dark corners. Most people avoided parking there. He stepped out. Silence. Just the hum of the ventilation system and the distant drip of water. He swept his flashlight across the rows of cars. Nothing. But then he heard it. Tek, tek, tek. He froze. The sound was faint, echoing off the concrete walls, coming from somewhere to his left. He turned slowly, his flashlight shaking in his hand. And then he saw her. At the far end of the garage, near the ramp, a figure, a woman, or what was left of one, dragging herself across the ground, her hair hanging in wet clumps, her fingers clawing at the concrete. Tek, 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 tek. Run. He couldn't. His legs wouldn't move. He just stood there, frozen, as she turned her head toward him. Even from 50 meters away, he could see her eyes, black, empty, filled with something that wasn't quite human. She started moving toward him, fast. Tek, 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 tek. That broke the spell. Takeshi bolted. He ran for the elevator, slammed the button, but the doors didn't open. He could hear her behind him, the scraping growing louder, faster, closer. He ran for the stairs instead, taking them two at a time, his breath ragged, his heart hammering. He didn't stop until he reached the ground floor. He burst through the door into the shopping mall, gasping, drenched in sweat. The mall was closed, dark, but it felt safer than down there. He radioed his supervisor, said there was an intruder, maybe a homeless person. He didn't mention what he'd really seen. He didn't think anyone would believe him. But when security reviewed the footage the next morning, they found something. The camera on sub-level 5 had recorded everything. They saw Takeshi enter the frame. They saw him stop. They saw him stare at something off camera. And then they saw him run. But here's the thing. On the footage, he was alone. There was nothing chasing him. Except, if you turned up the audio, you could hear it. Teke 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 teke. Teke 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 teke. But unmistakable. Takeshi quit the next day. He didn't even collect his final paycheck. He just left. But the story doesn't end there. 3 weeks later, another security guard was hired to replace him. A younger guy, early 20s, eager to prove himself. On his third night, he went down to sub-level 5 to investigate a noise. He never came back up. They found him the next morning, collapsed near the elevator. Heart attack, the doctors said, but his face was frozen in an expression of absolute terror. And his hands were scraped raw, as if he'd been trying to claw his way across the ground. The parking garage was closed after that. Sub-level 5 was sealed off entirely. Officially, it was due to structural concerns, but the locals know better. They know what's down there, and they know she's still waiting. Takeshi never spoke about that night again. He moved to Hokkaido, as far from Osaka as he could get, and took a job at a quiet countryside inn. He doesn't work nights anymore. He doesn't go near train stations, overpasses, or underground spaces. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind is howling outside and the old wooden walls of the inn creak and groan, he hears it again. faint, distant, but unmistakable. Teke, teke, teke. Maybe it's just the wind. Maybe it's his mind playing tricks. Or maybe Teke Teke doesn't forget. Maybe once she's seen you, once you've locked eyes with her, you're marked forever. And no matter how far you run, no matter where you hide, she'll always be just out of sight, dragging herself closer, one scrape at a time. Now, could Takeshi have imagined it? Could it have been stress, isolation, the darkness playing tricks on his mind? Absolutely. Working alone in an empty parking garage for hours on end, anyone's mind could start to wander. The glitching camera, the strange sounds, those could all be explained by old equipment and echoing acoustics. But the footage, the audio, the second guard's death, that's harder to rationalize. And the fact that the entire sublevel was sealed off and never reopened, that raises questions no one seems willing to answer. What do you think happened? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more true ghost stories from across Asia. Thank you for staying with me through all 3 stories. Teke Teke is one of Japan's most enduring and terrifying urban legends, born from real tragedy and kept alive by the countless people who claim to have seen her. Whether you believe or not, one thing is certain. In a country where trains are the lifeblood of daily existence, where millions of people pass through stations every single day, the idea of something lurking in the tunnels, waiting in the shadows, it's a fear that never quite goes away. Stay safe out there, and maybe, just maybe, think twice before taking that last train